The following podcast is for the sole purpose of entertainment and at no time represents an attorney-client relationship or legal advice from the hostess or her guests. For legal advice, please contact an attorney in your area. Welcome to Winning at Divorce. Please join our hostess as she welcomes guests to sit down with a favorite beverage and take a look at the many circumstances, stages, and processes of divorce and provide empowering anecdotes and tips to assist you in winning back your life. Our beautiful and talented hostess, Michelle Gregory, is a practicing Indiana divorce attorney, mediator, entrepreneur, and coach. For more information about her services, go to www.hmichellegregory.com. So pull up a seat, grab your favorite drink, and enjoy the show. And now, without further ado, here is the hostess of Winning at Divorce, Michelle Gregory.
Hey, everybody, it's Michelle Gregory again, your Winning at Divorce hostess. And thank you so much for all of your listeners and everybody liking our new page and everything. I'm so grateful that you guys are enjoying my first season, Winning at Building the Marital Team. And today is we're doing episode 3. And episode 3 is called Winning at Mental Health. And I have my good friend for 17, almost going on 17 years now.
It's at least.
My beautiful, beautiful friend, Elisa Duncan. And she is a mental health provider here in Bloomington, Indiana. And she's got a special place in my heart because she's helped a lot of my clients get through divorce. It didn't matter if it's the thinking about it stage, the midst of the craziness in a divorce and right in the middle of the battle, or dealing with someone after they've divorced. She can help you get through it. And so welcome, Elisa.
Thank you, my dearest.
I'm so glad you're here.
I am so glad I'm here too. And first of all, I want to thank you for doing this. There's so many people out there that need the support all the way around. So thank you for doing this. Michelle has also been a lifesaver for a lot of my clients that need legal help that I, of course, should not provide and shouldn't even think about it. So I send them her way too. So together, I think we make a pretty good team.
I appreciate it. And we've been a good team for a long time.
Yes, we have, as well as friends.
Yes. And we started working together almost 17 years ago. And on a case, we had a mutual client and we helped them get through that. And we just enjoyed talking to each other so much. We wound up going out to lunch or something, wasn't it?
Yep, for sure.
And you were so cute. You pulled up in that little Jaguar convertible.
Now I drive a big old truck, though. So
well, it was great. I was like, yes, I get to go ride in the cool Jaguar.
I do like cars for sure. Yeah,
me too. And I think you told me that your husband bought that as a surprise for you.
He did.
Yeah, he's such a sweetheart.
I am blessed to be married to one of the most wonderful men on the planet.
Well, let's have a toast to your wonderful marriage.
Yes.
God bless you.
2020.
And 2020. And to our friendship, may it be long lasting and may the podcast last forever and give a lot of help and tips to everybody. And a toast to Wes, our producer, who's doing an excellent job. Oh my gosh, I love this water.
That is wonderful.
It's so smooth and flavorless. It's just kind of like silk going down.
I know, it's great.
It's a high alkaline, 9.5 high alkaline water that's good for anybody who's got like indigestion, heartburn, or keeps your pH balance up to help you fight diseases and cancer. They say that if you have a high pH balance in your body, cancer can't grow.
Yeah, that's very true. And also, alkaline, keeping your body more alkaline actually reduces inflammation. And we now know that there's a link between inflammation and depression and anxiety.
Oh my goodness. That's amazing.
I know.
Okay, so you're going to give us all kinds of great tips here in a minute about counseling and mood and personality disorders. But first, if you would, I'd like to hear, now you've been practicing for 30 years.
For 30 years.
And doing an amazing job and helping a lot of people. I've got nothing but wonderful reports from everyone who's ever come to me.
Well, I appreciate that.
Who has seen you. And I have for a long time been sending people to you because I know you're honest and you're straightforward.
For sure.
And you don't dilly-dally around about it. You don't try to drag this out forever. You want to help people get to the bottom of things and get better.
Thank you. That's exactly right.
In fact, you're so busy, it's hard for people to get in to see you.
Yeah, it's been It's been kind of a crazy couple of years, and it has been so busy. But the thing I want to say first is that I have learned probably more from my clients than anybody. And every client that walks in the door is a gift because you learn so much from them.
Yeah.
And their struggles. I think people that come in for counseling are the bravest people in the whole world. They're so courageous.
Well, it takes a lot to admit something's going on and you need to get fixed.
It does. And just to walk into somebody's room, a complete stranger.
Exactly.
And kind of put your heart out there. I
Tell
just
all
think,
your deeper secrets.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think they're so courageous. So the best thing that I can do is just help people feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Have them come in, just feel comfortable, feel like they've come in just to talk to a friend.
Yes.
And just to have somebody that will advocate for them and be straight with them.
Mm-hmm.
But my belief is that people come in for counseling, but your job is to help them not to need counseling.
Right. Oh, that's excellent.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
So give us some background how you got to this point in your life. So tell us what took you on your journey that led you to becoming this fabulous counselor that you are.
Thank you. Well, it's really interesting because my background, my undergraduate degree is from Kelley School of Business.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point in my life, I was vice president of a family company. We had 250 employees. It was probably the third biggest chain of Hallmark card stores in the United States.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, there was a lot going on. And I worked there, vice president, buying, doing all the business aspect of it. But the part of the job that I loved was when every once in a while, one of our employees would come up and say, Lisa, could I talk to you? I'm just going through this. I'm like, oh yeah.
Your natural persona you put out there. Mm-hmm.
And so that was the best part of the job I found. But what I also found, I was married at the time and my husband, we were only married for a year and a half. Well, actually less than a year and a half. And he developed cancer, skin cancer.
Oh my goodness.
And he died once he had the diagnosis earlier in his life. He had been cancer-free for a long time. It was malignant melanoma.
Oh.
And gratefully treated early. That is such a curable cancer now. But 30 years ago, it wasn't so much.
Oh, I see.
So we were only married for a short time. The cancer came back. By the time we found out that it had come back, he was gone in probably 6 to 8 weeks.
Oh, wow.
It was very quick illness. So after I experienced that, I felt led to work with people that were not only dying, but the family members, people that were grieving. And because of that, I worked with hospice for many years. And because of that, I became a counselor.
So you had to go back to school?
I did. I went to Indiana University School of Counseling Psychology.
Go Hoosiers.
Yes. And great school, amazing. My mentor there was Dr. Rex Stockton, the kindest, gentlest soul on the planet. And so if I was ever going to model a counselor, it would be Dr. Stockton. He was always about unconditional positive regard for your clients and just about how to treat them well. And he was the best. So in any case, he was really inspirational. And the rest is history. So I've been practicing now. This is my 30th year.
That's amazing.
So
that's a blessing.
Yes, absolutely. So it's been just an amazing journey, an amazing part of life, and have enjoyed and loved every minute of it. And even 30 years later, people say, do you ever get bored with this? And I'm like, absolutely not. I love my job. I love going into work. You know, I have just amazing clients, and it's just been an amazing journey and blessing.
Yes, it is. And you're excellent at what you do. But you do some other things too. You do PALS?
Yeah, I'm not really affiliated with PALS right now, but the other thing I do is the other love of my life besides my husband and working is horses.
Yes.
So I went back and became a certified therapeutic riding instructor. Mm-hmm. And I have had the occasion to work with people, special needs clients and special needs, just this amazing population, working with women who have been abused and helping them to understand that sometimes this connection with the horse makes all the difference in the world.
Well, and there's a lot of new studies out too about horses and how riding, grooming, and caring for any animal, but horses, they're doing more studies on, can help people with mental health problems, depression, addictions and things like that. And I think PALS actually has some of those programs here.
Right. They do.
Mm-hmm.
They do. There is a therapeutic barn here in Bloomington called PALS, People and Animal Learning Services.
Yeah.
And they do have horses and people that instruct.
And do you ever refer your clients to participate in things like that?
I do often. In fact, a lot of times if I'm working with a family and they have, a child that is in need of some impulse control, a lot of times I will refer them to Taekwondo.
Uh-huh.
A lot of my clients I refer to yoga. So, you just take advantage of all the resources in the community.
So it's good to have a hobby, get exercise.
Yes, it is.
Helps with your mental health.
Yes, it does. Exercise for sure.
Any funny stories or tips you want to give our clients before we go into our next segment?
I'm trying to think. So many people over the years. I can't really think of anything right now, but I will as we're talking. I'm sure I will.
Got to be careful too what you say, right?
Yeah, that's true. That is very true. I don't want to embarrass myself.
Confidentiality. We got to do that.
I got to be careful with that too. So
I know there's times where I want to say, nope, can't say that
all the time.
Got to be private.
Got to be private for sure. So,
well, if that's all you want to share with us about you, no other hobbies.
Really just kind of horses and working and my husband.
Yeah,
and
keeps you busy.
That keeps me very, very busy. It's right now the counseling world. I'm going to kind of switch horses here for just a second, but right now the counseling world is, we're all very busy. I work in a private practice and we've got, at this point, 12 to 14 to 18 therapists that work out of, 9 offices.
Wow.
And every one of us is busy. Every one of us cannot pick up any more clients. We're just trying to scramble to help the community.
Now, I've heard there's a deficit in mental health providers.
I know.
A lot of people are switching from, family doctors are switching to doing more mental health, providing mental health services. Yeah. I know a couple pediatricians recently who've switched over. I think a lot of it has to do with the addictions, the opiate and the other addictions that the United States is really suffering from right now, that mental health providers are just overwhelmed. And there's not enough coming out of college to fill the void. So anybody looking for a good college degree to get, psychology,
for sure,
social work, things of that nature would be really lucrative at this point.
Right. Mm-hmm. There's a special need for psychiatrists for children as well. There's a real deficit in that too.
Well, they're the ones suffering from their parents' behaviors, their mental health and drug addictions. Yeah. Or it's being passed on genetically to them.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's a good segue for us to go ahead and take a break. But do you have a contact number, Elisa, that someone could reach you if they wanted your services?
I do.
What's a good number or email or Facebook?
Probably best just to text me.
Okay.
And the number is 812-322-3467. And that's probably the quickest way to get a hold of me.
You have a website?
I do not have a website.
You're too busy. You don't even have time to get a website.
I don't even have time to make a website, let's be on a website. So, it just, a lot of times, a lot of our clients are from referrals from doctors in the area, schools from the area, from other clients.
Yeah.
So from other professionals.
Right.
So
you get plenty.
Yes.
You're very busy.
Yes, we all do.
Well, thank you for sharing your background and your information with
welcome.
us. It's very helpful. So if someone's looking for a competent, intelligent, gorgeous, wonderful, nice Christian counselor, Elisa Duncan, I highly recommend her. Always have for the last almost 17 years. So that about wraps up this segment. And we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the different types of counseling that a person or family can get through a mental health provider. We'll get into some details about that. But so don't go away. It's very important that you know how to get help if you need it. And we'll be right back. So stay tuned. Don't go away. I'll know it. Right after this message, we'll be back.
Thank you for listening to Winning at Divorce with your hostess, Michelle Gregory. This is not a breakup, it's just a quick break. We'll be right back after these messages from our generous sponsors.
Divorce is the most emotional and stressful time in anyone's life, and it is a global phenomenon that stretches across most cultures and backgrounds. Hi, I'm your Winning at Divorce coach, Michelle Gregory, as well as a divorce attorney, mediator, and entrepreneur. My coaching clients come to me to bridge the gap between their attorney and their therapist. As a divorce coach, I can assist you with planning, preparing, and winning at divorce. As Zig Ziglar once said, you were born to win, but to be a winner, you must plan to win, prepare to win, and expect to win. For more detailed information, visit hmichellegregory.com or call me at 812-339-3600 to get started on your journey towards winning at divorce.
Welcome back to Winning at Divorce, and thank you for staying tuned in with us. Don't forget to check out our website at www.hmichellegregory.com. And once again, here's our fabulous hostess, Michelle Gregory.
And thank you for staying tuned, and welcome back to Winning at Divorce. I'm your hostess, Michelle Gregory. I'm an attorney, I'm a mediator, and I'm a divorce coach. So if you need my services, you know how to find me on my website, and I'm sure Wes will put the thingy down there like he always does. And we're here today in episode 3 with my very awesome and great friend, Elisa Duncan, and we just got through hearing your wonderful stories about your life and what's led you here. And you said you've been practicing for 30 years, and now you're in private practice, and you help a lot of people who are going through divorce, right?
Yes.
And so do you see people who come to you before they've decided or after the divorce, or all the above?
Well, really all the above, because a lot of people come, of course, for marriage counseling to save a marriage.
Right. Which is a good place to start.
Absolutely. And we will work as hard as they want to work to save their marriage.
Yeah.
Some people come because they are in the process of getting a divorce.
Right.
And they want to be able to divorce well. Mm-hmm. And they want to be able to do this in a way where it preserves their integrity. Sometimes it can preserve a friendship. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it can, the counseling during the divorce situation can help the children.
Right.
And sometimes it can keep people out of such divisive, negative situations.
And that's what I call winning at divorce.
Absolutely,
it's being able to get out of the divorce situation with its most, with your dignity and integrity, and doing what's right for overall with the children, and stop having the adversarial, this is a battle, I have to win. Right. And everything is win, 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 all about me at any cost. Mm-hmm. But people with that sort of attitude often have a mental health problem as well.
Absolutely.
Yes, they do. And we'll get into that in our
we will.
third segment. So why don't you tell me what all kinds of services they can come. So they can come to marriage counseling. Mm-hmm. And if they came to marriage counseling, what do you do? What do you work on? What happens in that? So give us some details.
Okay. Most of the time when people come in for counseling, there is a lack of communication, inability to communicate. Yeah. A lot of times there is an unmet need. A lot of times there is an unheard and unresolved feelings or emotions or hurt.
Things that have built up over time, the snowball effect. Mm-hmm.
Sure. Sometimes there's infidelity. Mm-hmm. Sometimes there's abuse. Yes. So people come in the door with all sorts of reasons for wanting to get marriage counseling. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times people come for counseling because they want somebody to tell that other person, kind of be objective, and to help them understand their point of view, to be able to convey that to the other spouse too. And when people come in the process of divorcing, again, they want to be able to do this well. Yeah. And they want to be able to raise their children together and co-parent together. One of the things I did, I worked off a grant that was a co-parenting grant. It was called a fatherhood grant. And what we did was really help families co-parent together, keep them out of court. Yes. Most of the time.
Very helpful.
Yeah. Keep them from hating each other, keeping them from putting the kids in the middle.
Make it less adversarial, less attorney fees.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And sometimes what I hope to do when people have decided to go through a divorce, so let's say they come in and the divorce has been decided. Mm-hmm. A lot of times people come into my office to help them understand what in the world just happened.
Why they're getting a divorce, why their partner wants a divorce.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And they come in with a lot of different issues. For example, if somebody comes in and they're in the process of getting divorced and they don't want it, people can become anxious. Mm-hmm. They can become depressed. Mm-hmm. They need time to grieve.
And there's a lot of fear and doubt.
Oh,
They
absolutely.
don't want it. They don't understand it. But they're afraid, like, well, what's going to happen to me now? What's going to happen to my kids, my personal property? Will I be able to pay my bills? Can I survive?
Right.
And seeing a good counselor is a great place to start because it helps them overcome some of that worry
Yes.
and start dealing with the grief that they're
Yes.
feeling. And then they go see a lawyer, and a lot of times if they haven't come to see someone like you, then I recommend that they go because I can
Sure.
see that they're grieving and they're anxious and they're fearful and they're living in doubt and, they're depressed.
Mhm.
And so I send a lot of people to you during the divorce process because they're already
Right.
decided or someone's decided for them
For
that they're
them,
getting
sure.
divorced. But you also do individual counseling.
I do.
And so how does that work?
People come in for individual counseling for a lot of different reasons. And again, in the context of divorce, they come in because their spouse wants a divorce. They have very little time to react to it. They have very little time to feel what they need to feel.
Mm-hmm.
There is expectations, there's logistical issues that need to be solved. Where are we going to live? Where are the kids going to live? Who's going to keep the house? How am I going to survive?
Mm-hmm.
Are the kids going to change schools? So people are in the midst of their grief, in the midst of their fears, and at the same time having to make logistical decisions.
Right.
So sometimes what I hope to do is if I can help them in the process emotionally, then hopefully by the time they see their lawyer,
Mm-hmm.
you can work with them on more of the logistical aspects of
Right.
it that they need to. And they need to have their wits about them.
Yes.
They need to be thinking straight.
Yes.
And so sometimes I hope I help with the emotional component
Yes.
so that you do your job best by helping with
Right.
their needs.
And
that
it's a
way.
team. It's a team
It's
effort.
a team effort.
Because
for
when
sure.
you're going through a divorce, you need your support group. You need your team. And that's why I've called this, building your winning at divorce team,
Right.
because it takes more than just yourself or just your lawyer to get through it. There are
Mhm.
so many other aspects of a divorce. And even if it's not an adversarial battleground, there's still a lot going on that people are trying to internalize and understand
Yes.
and figure out what they want to do in the, through the process. But it's hard for someone to come to me as a lawyer because I'm telling them I don't know what's going to happen because
Yeah.
it hasn't happened yet. I don't have a
Mhm.
crystal ball, which I wish I did. So wish I did. But I don't know what they're going to agree to. I don't know what the court is
Right.
going to order. And so what I need is for them to realize that they're going to be okay.
Yes.
It doesn't
Mhm.
matter if you get the car or the house or one day more or one day less of parenting time. You just have to kind of stop because they look like they're going to implode sometimes.
Sometimes.
And they're so worried. And if they have other if they have mental health problems,
Mhm.
then, those are getting in the way of them being able to understand, rationalize,
Sure.
and make healthy choices. And then if they're dealing with someone who has the mental health problem, that adds to everything,
It does.
depending on how bad or severe their mental health problem is.
It does. I mean, if you think about somebody that has an anxiety disorder
Mhm.
and all of a sudden their main support is out of the picture.
Right.
If you have somebody that has a depressive disorder and all of a sudden their world has collapsed.
Yes.
If you have somebody that has been through trauma
Yes.
and all of a sudden this can trigger a lot of abandonment issues.
Yes.
If you have somebody that's been through abuse,
Yes.
I mean, it can trigger. So my clients come in with a lot of those issues.
Yeah.
And even if you've never had any kind of a mental health diagnosis, these emotions are going to come.
You're going to feel
the grief.
something.
You're going to feel something. You're
Yes.
going to feel the grief, anger, rage,
Yes.
despair, anxiety. All of these emotions come into play whether you've ever been diagnosed with a mental issue, a mental health issue or not.
Right, because a normal person's going to feel emotions when they're going
And
through a
should.
traumatic life change like a
Yes.
divorce.
Yes.
Yes.
And should. And sometimes in the situation, it doesn't feel like they've been have time to even think about those emotions.
Right.
Because we have another spouse. It's like, I want out now.
Yes.
And you've got the other spouse like,
sudden.
yes.
Mhm.
So the other spouse has been thinking about this, say, for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And then you've got the spouse that
Thought everything was great.
thought everything was great
Yeah.
and they are shell shocked.
Yes.
but yet there's all these major decisions to make.
Right. Overnight,
Literally overnight sometimes.
within seconds. I mean, your world just crumbles down when someone turns and says, I want a divorce, or I'm leaving.
Right.
Your world just crumbles instantly.
It does.
And it causes a lot of anxiety.
It does. And then even people with, say, bipolar disorder, it can create a manic episode. It can create a depressive episode. Stress does not help that situation either.
Exactly.
So
what about family counseling? So you've got them. Can you do a family counseling during the divorce process or afterwards to kind of help smooth through some of the battles?
I can. A lot depends on where people are in the process. And sometimes I do post-divorce counseling.
Wonderful. Post-divorce.
With families, so that the children have an opportunity to have a voice. The teenagers have an opportunity to voice. And I tried, whoever is, say there's a wronged party, I think it's important for the process of them to be able to co-parent together, to be able to have that discussion of, you really hurt me when this happened. And to work about healing and work about forgiveness. And if we can work on those things post-divorce, a lot of times the co-parenting and their future, and most importantly, the future of their child's welfare, mental well-being, physical well-being, whatever, we can really help with that too.
Well, children often internalize it somehow it's their fault.
Yeah, they do.
And they're trying to figure out, what's my world going to look like now? When am I going with mommy? When am I going to be with daddy? How come we can't all be together?
Right.
And, sometimes they're so young, they don't know how to feel, or, an adult sometimes can deal with their emotions and kind of figure out what's going on, but children can't.
They can't. They feel abandoned.
And they're afraid to hurt one parent or the other's feelings. If they say, I want to live with mommy, daddy's going to say, well, what's wrong with me?
Yes.
And vice versa. And so do you get them all in the same room at once?
It depends on the situation, and it really depends on the family.
Yeah. So if there's domestic violence involved.
If there's domestic violence involved, I do not expect a woman or a man who has been physically abused to be in the same room with each other. I don't think that's safe.
It's not very productive either.
It's not productive. I don't think it's safe to have two people in the same room that there's been domestic violence. I don't do that. I do that individually.
Yes. So then how do? You meet with mom and the children, and then dad and the children, kind of, just break it up.
Right. And sometimes I've been with families that really the parents work together. They know they're going to be getting divorced. And sometimes ways that I've been able to help is when they want to tell the children.
Oh, yeah.
And so the children will come in for counseling with the mom and dad. I can somehow facilitate both of these parents talking to the children. And like you said, when a child doesn't know what to expect, they're filled with anxiety.
Yes.
So then the family together can kind of talk with the children. The children have an opportunity to talk about their feelings. I can hopefully give the children a voice, give everybody a voice.
Right.
So that there can be healing and forgiveness and because they're going to be in each other's lives.
Forever. When you have kids.
Forever, right.
You have grandkids together, great-grandkids together, all the birthdays and births and everything. So you kind of got to learn to deal with each other. So to win a divorce, you need to know how to properly communicate and respect your former spouse for your kids' sake.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's hard in some cases.
It's hard. And particularly if you're the harmed party, if you're the one that's really hurt, a lot of people, they don't mean to, but a lot of times they will share some of their hurt with their children. And the child, again, is forced to kind of take sides, is forced sometimes to care for the parent. Sometimes I've heard this so many times to a little boy, okay, now you're going to be the man of the family. And I know people mean well.
It's a lot of burden on a child.
And the children don't have the equipment to deal with that too. So sometimes just helping parents on how to best not hurt their children.
Yeah. Well, and there's a lot of old-fashioned ways of thinking too.
Yeah.
And that's one of them. You see that even in old movies, like Paul's dead now, and so you're 12, you're the man, take over and kill a deer and support the family, and some very old school way of thinking that's not real practical in the real world.
It isn't. And if I can help a couple do one thing, it's like keep your kids out of the middle of this.
And it's hard to do because sometimes you'll have one parent who just tells the kids everything, and the child comes back and goes, "Mommy said, Daddy said," and you're like,
yeah.
And then that parent now has to defend themselves and share information they didn't want to share. That's inappropriate in the first place.
Yes.
But if they don't, then the child doesn't get the whole story.
Yeah.
But they shouldn't be getting the story anyway.
Yeah.
But now they've got more than they should have ever got.
Sure. Now, when the children are adult children, and sometimes that's a different story. Sometimes they can be brought in. Sometimes they can be a support for the parent. But for little kids, try your best to keep them out of the situation as best you can. I mean, listen to their feelings. Don't badmouth the other parent, because here's what happens when a child loves their mother and their father.
Of course.
And the child knows that they're made up of DNA from mom and DNA from dad.
Yes.
And then if you've got a father that says, I hate your mother, the child sometimes feels like the father hates them.
Because it's the DNA connection. It's like, well, I'm part of them, so you might hate me too.
You might hate me too.
Yeah.
So
not to mention you're teaching your kids some really bad habits.
Yeah.
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 And I have clients all the time telling me that, well, my child came and said, mom or dad said this. What do I do? I'm like, well, if you sweep it under the rug, act like it didn't happen, then they're going to believe it. Mm-hmm. If you defend yourself and tell the truth, then you're giving them more information than they need.
Right.
And some parents just sweep it under, but then later the child has had nothing but negative comments. Mm-hmm. And they now don't like the parent who was trying to take the high road and say nothing because they have all these negative comments that the other one has brainwashed them with.
Right.
So there's where's the balance? What do you do?
Right. And the child is stuck in the middle.
Exactly. They're a pawn in the game.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And that's what we work really hard. Every therapist I work with, we work really hard to help parents deal with their own emotions, to help the children deal with theirs, to help the families have some type of positive relationship, even post-divorce, and even through the divorce process.
Do you see a lot of Disneyland parents who just want to buy their kids' affection and try to turn them from the other parent as much as they can?
Yes. We see that. We see that all the time.
Yes.
And when a child is 7 years old and a parent is saying, hey, I'll buy you a pony if you come live with me.
Or a $1,200 iPhone.
Or a $1,200 iPhone. Yeah. That's for sure. I'll see that all the time. I'll take you on a big trip. Yes.
And they make it clear. I'll take you and do all this stuff, but your other parent's bad.
Oh, yeah. Or there's positions where a Disneyland parent gets to have all the fun, but doesn't do really any parenting and doesn't really do any discipline.
They don't take them to any appointments. But there's no rules.
It leaves the other parent to sometimes be the parent, the real parent, the real parent that's going to guide them and have rules. And then the child gets mad at the real parent because
who's doing a good job.
Because, well, I don't have rules at this parent's house and now I'm going to have rules here. Mm-hmm. So it really confuses the children. And
they feel like they're living basically out of a suitcase.
They do.
Because it's so many days over at mom's, so many days at dad's, so many back at mom, back at dad's. Often I've had clients tell me that they have to pin a sticky note to the child's jacket so the child knows which bus to get on after school, depending on which parent's house they're going to. Because a lot of people are now into this belief that, I have to have my kids half the time. They want them every other day or every 3 or 4 days. And it's nice for the parent, but it's not so nice for the child.
One situation I know of, it was really phenomenal that we worked on, whereas the children always stayed in the house.
Mm-hmm. The nesting.
Yes. They got to stay in their home. Mm-hmm. They didn't have to switch schools. They didn't have to put their little backpacks on their back and go on down the road.
Right.
They stayed in the house. 1 week, mom would stay in the house and dad would stay with his parents. The next week, dad would stay in the house and mom would go stay with her parents so that the children never had to leave the house.
Yeah.
And
the parents hate that because I'm back and forth. Well, how do you think your child's been feeling?
That's right.
Or will feel.
And who's most important?
Yeah, well, we know what most people think.
Yes.
That they're important.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there are certain personality styles that kind of lend to that.
And we're going to talk about that in the next segment, right?
Right.
Because there's some really dangerous people out there who think it's all about them.
For sure.
And so, okay, do you ever counsel children?
I don't work. There's kind of adult counselors and the kid counselors.
Right.
And in our office, I think I work with some of the best child counselors in Bloomington.
So you have plenty of them that that you can refer to.
I do. And I think it's best for the the therapist that is most suited, and that is their expertise to really work with the person.
Yeah.
Okay. So I may have an expertise like working with families. My probably top expertise in grief counseling.
Oh, okay.
And working with people that are dying and the grieving process.
Well, grieving is part of the process of divorce.
Of life.
Yeah.
You're going to be grieving something.
Yeah.
So we all kind of have our specialties. So I believe that when it comes to little bitties, I have people that, and I work with people that are the best.
Well, you do a great job with adults. And so if that's your specialty, then that's probably the better way to go, is do what you enjoy and what you're the best at, and then refer out the children to someone who loves doing that. And that's their specialty.
That's their specialty for sure.
That makes good sense. Well, this has been wonderfully helpful. Thank you.
Good.
Yeah. Good. So thank you to Elisa Duncan. Again, why don't you give your contact information one more time for anybody who wants to reach out to you.
Right. And I'm Elisa Duncan. My contact number is 812-322-3467. And if I can't help you, again, I work with some of the best counselors in Bloomington. I can absolutely find somebody that can help your situation.
Yep. And she's the best. One of my faves. So that pretty much wraps up segment 2. My gosh, the time has just flown by.
I know.
Now we're going to get into the good stuff.
All right.
We're going to talk about mood disorders and mostly personality disorders, because that's what I see a lot of in divorce. So stay tuned. We've got some really great information coming back when you come back. This is Michelle Gregory, your hostess at Winning at Divorce. I am a divorce attorney and a mediator and a divorce coach. So give me a call if you need something. Otherwise, just stay tuned, because we're coming right back with good information right after our sponsor.
Thank you for listening to Winning at Divorce with your hostess, Michelle Gregory. This is not a breakup, it's just a quick break. We'll be right back after these messages from our generous sponsors.
Divorce is the most emotional and stressful time in anyone's life, and it is a global phenomenon that stretches across most cultures and backgrounds. Hi, I'm your Winning at Divorce coach, Michelle Gregory, as well as a divorce attorney, mediator, and entrepreneur. My coaching clients come to me to bridge the gap between their attorney and their therapist. As a divorce coach, I can assist you with planning, preparing, and winning at divorce. As Zig Ziglar once said, "You were born to win, but to be a winner, you must plan to win, prepare to win, and expect to win." For more detailed information, visit hmichellegregory.com or call me at 812-339-3600 to get started on your journey towards winning at divorce.
Welcome back to Winning at Divorce, and thank you for staying tuned in with us. Don't forget to check out our website at www.hmichellegregory.com. And once again, here's our fabulous hostess, Michelle Gregory.
And we're back. It's Michelle Gregory with Winning at Divorce. I'm your hostess here today on the podcast, and I hope that all of you guys have been following me on Facebook and on my YouTube channel, Winning at Divorce. On either one of those, you can find me. And I am so lucky to have a wonderful, wonderful person here, a good friend, a nice Christian counselor lady. So if you're looking for one here in Bloomington, Indiana, give her a call. This is Elisa Duncan. One more time, our last segment with Elisa. So we're going to make this a really good one and get into the juicy stuff now.
Yes, we will.
All right. So
absolutely.
My favorite stuff to talk about, and what I see a lot of in my practice, is either my clients or the person that were married to or are married to have a lot of mental health problems. Mm-hmm. It seems like people with mental health problems are more inclined to get a divorce because they have more challenges and things to get over. And so I've been doing a little research so I could talk to you today. I mean, I know some of the stuff, but I want to make sure I knew what I was talking about. But I kind of want to talk about the differences between mood disorders and personality disorders and how they can affect everybody and how they interplay and interweave with each other. So if you want, we can talk about some of the mood disorders. And you mentioned some earlier when you were talking about depression and bipolar and things like that. So why don't you kind of tell us what depression is?
Okay. So when you are a mental health counselor, a psychologist, a psychiatrist, we give different diagnoses, and we base that off of something called the DSM-5. And it is the manual, and it has hundreds of diagnoses with diagnosis codes on them. in order to meet a diagnosis, you have to meet the criteria.
Mhm.
And sometimes you have to have, say, 5 out of 9 symptoms to meet the criteria to be diagnosed with depression, for example. So the book is kind of split up in a few different ways, but you have the mood disorders, you've got the bipolar disorders, you've got schizophrenia, you've got a lot of disorders that a lot of times we find are typically neurotransmitter imbalances.
And what does that mean?
That just means that some of the brain chemistry is deficient in some ways. Maybe the serotonin is not being utilized.
So it's not firing off correctly inside
It could
the brain?
be, for sure.
Or you're not taking or eating something to
Absolutely.
Okay.
You can have mood disorders from hormonal imbalances, from deficiencies in your food, for a lot of different reasons. And it seems like more of the disorders on one part of the book are very treatable with medications, say.
That's more your mood disorders like depression, bipolarism,
schizophrenia.
Okay.
Yes. Anxiety. A lot of times it can be treated with a medication, or I like to first look at natural ways for supplements, vitamins, exercise, yoga, good just things to put to eat to help people. So you kind of have that component. And a lot of times those disorders are treatable with medication or in other ways. In the back of the book, though, is a grouping called the personality disorders.
Yes.
And there's quite a few. There's probably, I think there's like 10 or 11 total.
But they're in clusters, right?
They're in clusters. And they're in clusters based on kind of the components of the diagnosis.
The similarities with each other.
Yes. And so the ones that probably we deal with most in divorce would be probably 3 that I would put on top. One would be sociopathic.
Yes.
Or the antisocial personality disorder.
Right. And those are kind of interchangeable. The antisocial disorder, I think, is how it's kind of usually recalled. But the layperson would say, oh, they're sociopath. Something, or a psychopath.
Or psychopath. And really the term psychopath we really don't use, but sociopath for sure.
Yes.
And those are the people that are very exploitive of people. They have no sense of empathy. They don't really have a conscience. They people think of a sociopath like Hannibal Lecter on Silence of the Lambs.
Well, that's your extreme version.
That's your extreme.
Right.
But it can also be the guy that you bought something on eBay and he scammed you.
Yeah.
All right. So a lot of the personality disorders.
So they have a disregard of others and their feelings and their needs.
Yeah, but for sure, exploitive.
Yeah, exploitive.
In lots of different ways.
What about violence or anger?
Absolutely.
History with the law?
Yes. A lot of times that they can really push past a person's boundaries, physical boundaries. So, but a lot of these personality disorders, again, there's a criteria that you have to meet. And sometimes we all have times when we don't feel really empathetic. So we all have times when we can kind of exhibit maybe one of these traits, but that doesn't mean you have a disorder. You have a disorder.
Right.
Okay. To have a disorder, it has to really interfere with our relationships. Yeah. It has to interfere with our working. For example, I like my closet really neat. Am I a little obsessive about my closet? Probably so.
A little OCD there.
A little OCD. But is it a disorder? No. I mean, the day I couldn't leave my closet to do my job, it would be a disorder, but I just like it neat and tidy.
Right.
Right. So, and again, some of these personality disorders can be almost like on a spectrum.
Right.
So again, you can have the guy, you buy something on eBay, it turns out to be a sham, or you could have the serial killer. All right.
You buy something in the store and the guy follows you home and kills you.
Yes. So it is kind of on a spectrum. We hear about the most dramatic, and a lot of times movies portray a lot.
Well, it makes it more fun and interesting, right?
It makes it more. Another one that we see a lot would be, it's called bipolar or borderline personality disorder. And borderline personality disorder, the hallmark of that is that it's such an intense fear of abandonment.
Yes.
That sometimes those emotions are so out of control. The person is so worried about being left that they can act out in a lot of ways.
That's the ones who do a lot of stalking.
Can do stalking, can self-harm, that can threaten suicide, that can be kind of manipulative. and again, we see the spectrum of different symptoms of this. But the hallmark of that, again, is just the fear of being abandoned.
Well, they're obsessed with this idea that if their spouse leaves them, that something's wrong with them.
Yes, they take it upon themselves.
They take it upon themselves. And so therefore they will do anything to get you back or to watch you, control you, manipulate you, whatever it takes. They'll lie to their friends. They'll lie to their family. They'll lie to your friends and family. They'll try to destroy your career.
Right.
I mean, they'll do anything to try to force. The craziest thing I see is they'll try to ruin you, but then they'll say, "Oh, please come back. I miss you.
Please come back." Right.
And you say no. And then they try to ruin you some more.
Yes.
And then it's, "Please come back. I love you. I can't do without you. You're the best." And you're like, you're thinking, the clients are thinking, this person's nuts.
Yes. And one of the key things that we see there is called splitting, where I love you one minute, I hate you the next minute.
Yes.
I love you and put you on a pedestal, and I'm going to cut you off at the knees.
Yes.
Now, keep in mind, though, we all have feelings of abandonment, and nobody likes to feel abandoned.
Of
that
course
doesn't
not.
mean you
Yeah.
meet the criteria of borderline personality disorder. But again, if we look at the end of the spectrum, there was a movie called Fatal Attraction with Glenn Close. Okay,
Yes.
so that was based on a borderline character, her
Obviously.
character. Yes. So, but
She was
again,
nuts.
that's the end of the spectrum on that.
Yeah.
And probably the one that we see, so we do that happens a lot. So when you have a person that their worst fear is being abandoned and their spouse is abandoning them, then you have to deal with all of that anxiety, hopefully in a counseling situation, to help them come to terms that they will survive.
Yes.
And they
Well, of
will
course
be
they
okay.
will. But they
Of
get
course.
themselves so convinced that their world is over without you.
Yes.
And they're so angry that they'll do anything to hurt you.
Mm-hmm.
But they think somehow that's going to get you back. Like it's a manipulative thing. If I'm mean enough, you'll come back to me because you want me to stop. A normal person's reaction is, OMG, I want the heck out of here. Protective order. Never want to see you again. Of course, the best thing is never have contact with that person again, but you can't always do that because there's children involved.
Yes.
And so you're stuck always having to deal with the sociopath, psychopath, nipping at your heels for the rest of your life.
Yes.
It's very dangerous and scary.
The thing about personality disorders is, like, as opposed to the other diagnoses on the first half of the book, where a lot of times they're very treatable with one way or other, the personality disorder is really basically a broken personality. It's a fractured personality. It doesn't lend itself well to treatment, though we're getting better at it. I mean, we're getting better at some treatments that can really help people with personality disorders.
It's not curable.
It's pretty pervasive. It's hard to treat.
My understanding is medications do not fix them. It might cushion
help
things a bit.
Sure.
But, they need extensive psychotherapy where they really get to the root of the problem. Because you said a broken person. A lot of times this is something that's happened to them when they were children.
A lot of trauma. Sure.
Toxic relationships.
Abuse,
sexual abuse, verbal, physical abuse by parents or a relative.
Yes.
I've also heard brain injuries can cause it.
Right.
But it's very genetic. You can look back in your history, right?
Sometimes the jury's still out on that, but we are seeing some kind of genetic components, even environmental components. When a child has seen a certain behavior, then they learn that behavior. And we also know when I was a fledgling therapist, one of my jobs, I worked in a situation where I worked with convicted felons that were court ordered for counseling, who would have been considered or diagnosed sociopaths. And what we found out is that a lot of them had frontal lobe disturbance.
Probably from sports things?
Could be, but a lot of times,
car wrecks?
all of the above. Some of them, it was learned behavior.
Well, I see that a lot because a lot of times my clients will come to me and they'll say, these are the characteristics my spouse is exhibiting. They're fleeing. They've got trying to get protective orders to protect themselves. And they're afraid for their children's safety. But even more so, they're afraid of the constant exposure to this negative personality that the child is going to start behaving that way. And a lot of times I see it. A lot of times if the man has these borderline, bipolar, and a lot of these can overlap. So they can have more than one mental health problem going on. They will see the son or daughter now treating mom that way, the way dad does.
Yes.
And the person who's sane is trying to keep everything all balanced. And now not only do they have the ex who's crazy, but now the child is either from environmental or DNA or both is behaving that way.
Right.
And now you're dealing with both of these.
And now you're dealing with both. Now, the one that we see a lot is the narcissist.
Oh my
right?
gosh.
And again, narcissism, we all have a bit of narcissism in us.
Well,
okay?
we all like ourselves, we hope.
Well, we do. I mean, I wanted to dress up
Oh,
for
you look
this interview
gorgeous.
today. And
So
so,
pretty.
we all have some of that.
Yeah.
But again, you have to meet a criteria, a very specific criteria to be diagnosed with a disorder. All right. So I want people to know that just because you like how you look doesn't mean you're a narcissist.
It's just a little vanity.
But it's just a little vanity. But there is pathological narcissism.
Yeah.
And what we find is that you have one parent where they feel like the child is their possession. Or
They need them.
They need them. And
Yeah.
what they need from them is the child's adoration and the love. So narcissism typically is a core insecurity where the person needs constant reassurance, constant affirmation, needs to convince themselves that they're great, needs to convince themselves that they're special, needs to convince themselves all the time to compensate for a fragile psyche that is just feels terrible about themselves.
Well, it seems kind of like it's this weird dichotomy thing going on because the narcissists have to believe that they're great and most important and most admired, most loved. But yet they are the most insecure, most self-loathing.
It can be that way, yes.
That it's almost like they're putting on that mask or something.
Yes. And what's really interesting in the dynamics between a narcissistic parent and a child, for example, the narcissist uses the child as an extension of themselves. So when the child is doing great, the narcissist can say, look at what I did.
Right.
But sometimes what the narcissist hates about themselves that they don't want to acknowledge, they will project onto the child.
Or to other people.
Or to other people too. And then you have a child, so raised with a narcissist, you have a child that feels like they have to be perfect, a child that feels like their role in life is to make that parent be okay, that they have to do well, they have to be an overachiever, because the narcissist parent, again, it's on a spectrum. There are narcissists that can love, but we're talking about kind of the pathological.
Right.
Right.
Your worst case scenario.
Yeah. That the child keeps trying to earn their love, but it can't happen.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And they keep jumping higher and trying harder.
And the parent's never satisfied.
Never satisfied. Or sometimes the child gets put up on a pedestal and objectified because look at my child, he's this great sports person and look at what I created.
Right.
And then you talk about anxiety for the kid.
Yes.
That takes a lot to stay up there on that pedestal.
Exactly.
So we see children that feel like they have to take care of the parent and children that feel
they
like
often play the victim.
Yes.
Yes, they do.
Yes, they do.
They target everybody else, but then whoever's admiration they're looking for, they like to play the victim.
Yes. And the other thing about a narcissistic parent is that the child doesn't get to have emotions or personality apart from the narcissist. So whatever the narcissist feels, the child is expected to feel.
You see that a lot when the narcissist and the other parent are together, like at a school event, and the child is afraid to go talk to one parent because the narcissist will get upset.
Right.
Yeah.
In order for the child to be able to gain some sort of alliance with the narcissistic parent, that means they have to hate the other parent because they have to share.
When they're watching. Yeah.
And then that creates anxiety and the poor child feels so guilty.
Yeah.
So the narcissistic parent is very difficult to deal with, very difficult for the children to deal with.
Yes.
And then that leads to a whole series of events for the child as they grow up.
Of course.
And co-parenting, it's really difficult.
It's a nightmare.
It can be a nightmare because the narcissistic parent feels entitled to everything.
It's their way or the highway. This is a game.
It's their way or the highway.
And they want to win.
And the narcissistic parent will have a way of kind of bad-mouthing you to all the people around.
Yes.
Because there can only be one good person.
Only one perfect one.
That has to be them.
Yeah.
So sometimes the other parent feels pretty unsupported, feels like people have just shunned away from them.
Because everybody thinks, well, they're so charming and they must be true. This must be real.
Right.
And they'll side with them. And a lot of times the narcissist will buy them things, give them money, take them places, flatter them, do things for them to say, well, see how nice he is. what he's saying or she's saying must be true.
Right.
Even though it's just
right. I have seen situations. I've seen situations when I've done some like supervision of so if there's a situation where there's a custody agreement and there has to be supervised visitation,
you
for
do
example. Not very often. I will do that sometimes as a favor to a family.
Okay.
All right. But it's not what I do for a living. There are people that do that every day and
That's
are
a tough
awesome
job.
at it. It's very, very tough.
Yeah.
But there are situations that can become so dangerous that a narcissistic parent will hate the other parent so much that in order to hurt them, sometimes they'll put their own children at harm.
Yes, they will.
And I've seen situations where like I will not allow food or water to be brought in because I'm trying to protect the child in case this parent wants to harm the child.
Yeah.
So it can be very dramatic. Bottom line, though, it's difficult dealing. It's difficult co-parenting in a narcissistic situation.
Yes.
And it takes a lot of fortitude for the person that's not.
You know, and once someone's married to that person, has children with them, it's almost impossible to ever escape, except, you know, when you go on to meet your maker. So it's better to probably not marry a person like that.
That would be best.
So what are some good red flags that someone might notice when they're dating someone to prevent ever getting in a relationship with someone who's borderline or narcissistic? And just to say that people can be multiple things at once. You can be bipolar, narcissist, borderline. You can have all kinds of tendencies all bleeding together.
Yes. And
the more of them there are, the more difficult your relationship or marriage is going to be, because that's not going to be a pleasant experience.
And sometimes to throw in something else to the mix is sometimes some of the symptoms of some of these disorders are so great that they self-medicate with drugs or alcohol.
Well, and that's one of the things that I always notice, because that's always a big red flag for me, is if a client is sitting in my office and they're like, oh, and he or she's an alcoholic or they do drugs. Then I go, that sends it off in my brain like, we've got another underlying issue.
Yes.
How bad is it and what all are we dealing with here? Yes. And that's when I spend a lot of time digging in, trying to find out the past. And almost always, if you say, well, what happened to that person when they were a child? It almost always goes back to some horrible situation when they were children, undiagnosed mental health problems. They weren't taken care of well as a child, undiagnosed health problems that are starting to manifest in those, puberty years that just go on and they self-medicate because they go out and have that first drink with their friends, when they're young. Oh, that I felt better for a minute. I didn't think about all the horrible things that happened to me.
Right.
And they just keep doing it. And then they're 30, 40, 50 years old, untreated, underlying, really difficult mental health problems that are manifesting and showing themselves through addictions.
Yes, for sure. So that complicates the water even more.
Yes.
So things to look for.
Right.
All right. First and foremost, this is what I tell my clients. Particularly with narcissism, for example, you can meet somebody that's very narcissistic and they can be the most charming, amazing people on the planet.
Fun, outgoing.
Wonderful, can shower you with attention. So the first thing is before you get in too deep, seriously, emotionally, date them for a long time.
Yes.
All right. Because you can only we call it the mask of sanity, where you can only keep that mask up for so long.
And a lot of times people want to get married with 1 or 2 years. And if you're only seeing each other like on the weekends or something like that, they can prepare themselves to be the best they can be when they're around you.
Right. And that's common with all of us. We want to put our best face on. The other thing to kind of look for is if you see somebody, now none of us probably like criticism, but when you see somebody that is so hypersensitive to criticism that it's called narcissistic injury. So if you were to say a parent is trying to help the other parent better, and you see that parent just was like almost an instant rage, how dare you criticize me? That it is so instantaneous and it is rage rather than like, oh, that didn't feel good. So that is another thing to look for too. Look for people that seem okay about exploiting other people, other people that are manipulative with other people. I'm kind of like with a borderline personality disorder, somebody that calls you 47 different times after the first date. And
or 47 times that night, wanting to know where you're at and why you're not answering the phone.
Yes. So those are kind of some key things to worry about too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of
or
course,
they're knocking on your door.
Yes.
Because you didn't answer your phone. How dare you not answer your phone?
And then keying your car when that happens.
Yeah.
And again, these are the extreme versions of the personality
happen. I hear about them every day.
They do happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do.
They're real.
So take your time when you're dating somebody. Take your time, a lot of time before you marry them. Years. Have a predetermined set of non-negotiables of what you want in your partner. And those non-negotiables are, I'm not going to be abused. I'm not going to be disrespected. My children are going to be safe. Make your non-negotiables long before you get married.
Yes.
And if people don't follow that non-negotiable, there are amazing people out there to look for.
There are some, but people seem to be attracted to the ones that are grandiose and fun and outgoing in the beginning.
Right.
And women seem to have a tendency to bond with this type of personality.
Right.
And then once you've intimately bonded with someone, women have a tendency to be afraid to break up.
They do sometimes.
Because I've been intimate with this person. Now I've got to keep going step after step after step.
Right.
And in this day and age where you can be intimate with whoever you want, don't let that guilt you into staying.
Absolutely. The other thing to keep in mind is that particularly with like the narcissistic personality, the narcissist typically pairs themselves with the empath. And the empath is that person that really can feel what you feel, that are very giving and loving of themselves.
They target those type of people.
And they sometimes target those people. And then you have just a nice, normal, kind, empathetic person trying harder, wanting to please, and they can't ever seem to please.
You can't please someone that always moves the bar.
And they move the bar so that you'll keep trying and dancing faster.
Because it makes them feel good about themselves.
It makes them feel in control.
And control and power is a big thing
For
to
sure.
people like borderline and narcissism.
Yeah.
And especially if you get one that's borderline and a narcissist. Because you can be a narcissist without being borderline, but most borderlines are narcissists, or all borderlines are narcissists, if I remember correctly.
Sometimes they share traits.
Okay.
Okay, just like people share traits, sometimes different personality disorders can share traits as well. The narcissist can sometimes feel, be very like not empathetic, but won't kill you.
But they can pretend to be.
Or they can pretend to be.
It's like they learn, like, if I say sorry, even though I don't mean it.
Right. But sometimes they can all kind of look alike. Sometimes they can all be very manipulative.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Now, is it true that, 1 in 25 people are sociopaths?
That we know. I don't know the specific.
I think that's what I read.
It could
The Sociopath
be.
Next Door, I think, was one of the books I read. And I think it's 1 in 25.
Yeah, that could
But that's
be.
what they know. People have actually presented themselves to be evaluated. Right. So it actually could be much higher.
It could be because I think people, again, they associate sociopaths with the ones they see on TV or Jeffrey Dahmer or Ted Bundy, when the sociopath can be the guy next door or the person at work that sabotages your work to get the promotion.
Exactly. Yeah, lies about you to the boss so that you don't get the promotion.
Again, these things are sort of on a spectrum.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness.
There's a lot.
I know. We didn't talk much about bipolar. Anything special you want to talk about bipolar? Because that's a common thing, too. I see that a lot.
Yes, bipolar is, I have many bipolar clients. I think they're the most incredible, brave, courageous people because it is a diagnosis kind of where in different degrees marked by highs of manic behavior where they can be impulsive, they can be reckless, they can be happy, they can be, and then sometimes vacillating down towards depression.
Where they're sleeping, they won't get out of bed.
Right, suicidal.
Can't do anything, can't work.
Right. Again, very much a chemical imbalance. And it's, as long as it's usually treated, people with bipolar do great. And they have jobs and they function and they do wonderfully.
Now, can people be diagnosed as bipolar because they just had a basic conversation with their family doctor or therapist, but really have a borderline personality disorder? I mean, because I hear there's like a lot of similarities.
There is. And sometimes it's really hard for clinicians to really diagnose and kind of see one for the other. What we do, though, is sometimes the personality disorder can share traits among each other, but sometimes people with a mental health condition, some of those traits sometimes dovetail. So sometimes it is hard to make a differentiation and sometimes hard to make a diagnosis until you've spent enough time. So we do have decision trees that we work off of, that if this, then that, if not this, then it's this. That really helps us make a concrete diagnosis, because it's crucial. Because if bipolar is undiagnosed or misdiagnosed as borderline, then they're not getting a key medication that they need.
Right.
Or you have somebody that is diagnosed borderline, and that's a tough diagnosis.
Yeah.
And it's tough. It's a tough label.
Yes.
And so a lot of times you want to be very careful about labeling people with these personality disorders, because they're pervasive, through your life.
Right.
And
but if you don't get labeled, you won't get the help you need.
You won't get the help. So it's kind of a dicey situation for clinicians. And we have to be very careful about how we make those diagnoses. Right. And we don't do it flippantly. We need to follow our criteria. If we're not sure, we need to seek help from our mentors or supervisors or whatever.
Do you ever talk to the client's family to get more input so that you can see it from the perspective of someone who's not trying to self-protect and not show all of their characteristics because they're afraid of getting that label?
I like to do that. Yeah. Now, of course, I cannot do that without the written release or consent for them to be able to do. But I think it sure helps me to be able to see another side. And so a lot of times, if my client consents to it and signs a written release, I do meet up with family members.
That seems like that'd be a vital component to get the fuller story.
Right. Because a lot of times people come to counseling and they want to present their best self.
Of course.
I get that too.
If they're suicidal, they're not going to tell you.
And sometimes they don't. And
they're afraid you're not going to like them or think, judge them in some way.
Right.
But counseling's not supposed to be about that. It's about finding out what's really going on so you can help somebody.
It's about helping. It's not about judge. I haven't lived any kind of life that lets me judge anybody, and I'm not going to start today.
No, so, I'm not perfect either. I've made tons of mistakes.
I don't get to do that, but we try to help, and the best way we can help is to diagnose well.
Right. And that's great.
And then sometimes refer to people that have more skills than we do. Right. And there's always somebody with more skills than we have too. And to make sure that we're staying within the realm of what we can practice and making sure that counselors aren't practicing law when they have no business being. And that's when I send them to you, because you're the best.
Right.
And
I don't know about that, but thank you.
That's the truth.
Well, and I don't try to give people therapy, but I do try to point out when they're giving me clues of what's going on. They're giving me details of their case and they're giving me tips and clues of what's happening in their life. I know enough to say, oh, I think we see some of this going on. And that's when I say, you need to go see Elisa.
Right. Which is exactly what I do when they start talking about distribution of assets and things like that. I'm like, I got a business background. I know enough to talk to them, but it's like, no, you need to go talk to a lawyer about this.
And you also do, what is that? Collaborative. You help with collaborative law divorces. Mm-hmm. So you're certified in that.
I'm not certified, but I do help with a lot of.
Because collaborative law, there's usually a team of people, and often there's a counselor involved.
Sure. Yeah, because I think it really helps. And a lot of times that involves a financial planner that can really help with the money component of it, the legal component of it, the mental health component. And if we all work together, our clients hopefully can come out of this
winning at divorce. Yeah. And that's a great segue out of here. So thank you so much for joining us today with Elisa Duncan, my awesome, best, cool friend here, who is a mental health provider here in Bloomington, Indiana. And so go ahead and give them your information one more time.
Okay. It's Elisa Duncan, and it's 812-322-3467.
And we have to get her a website because she's so amazing. We need to put that out there so people can find her easier. So we're going to have to figure something out for you.
Okay.
We have to hook her up with the right people. So that's it for today. The end of our segment 3. And end of our 3rd episode. Let me get this out here right. End of 3rd episode, end of segment 3, something like that. Anyway, this is Michelle Gregory, your Winning at Divorce podcast host. I am a divorce coach. So if you need some divorce coach services, and I do help people build their winning team, give me a call. The information is somewhere down there. I'm sure Wes has got that all figured out for me. He's the tech guy. And I'm out of here until next time. See you soon. Goodbye.
Bye.
This has been Winning at Divorce, a podcast to empower and assist you through the divorce processes and stages using stories and tips. We hope this podcast has shed some light on the main concerns that people face when going through a divorce. And remember, this podcast is for entertainment purposes only. If you need assistance, please seek professional advice from a licensed attorney or other professionals in your area. For more information about our services, please visit www.hmichellegregory.com.
Hello, I'm Michelle Gregory, your Winning at Divorce coach. Divorce is the most difficult and challenging time in a person's life. Regardless as to whether the divorce is your idea or not, the process can be very frightening, stressful, and overwhelming. You don't have to go through it alone. A divorce coach can assist you whether you just need a support person to vent or help you to identify your desires, set your goals, make plans to achieve your goals, implement your plans, or direct you to the right professionals so that you can win at divorce. For more information regarding how my coaching services can help you, visit hmichellegregory.com or call me at 812-339-3600 to get started on your journey towards winning at divorce.